morning, good morning. All right, how many people are still in line out at the plant wall, the neon sign wall? Has anybody seen? A lot of people. Y'all come inside. You can take pictures afterwards. Can you believe that it's already the last session? The last plenary? It's okay if you cry. I'm awing. I am sad that we're already at the closing session. I can't believe it's gone so fast. I hope you all have had a phenomenal conference. I really hope that we do not take for granted that you all are busy people, and you've taken time away from your friends, your loved ones, your families, your pets. You've taken time away from your lives to be with us for the past couple days, and we don't take that lightly. And so we really want to say thank you for giving us your time. We hope that we've been good stewards, and we really hope that you are leaving today really both, I hope you're a little tired. I hope you've been working your brains so hard that you're feeling like, I need some me time just to decompress and relax. We had a whole conversation this morning at breakfast in the Scholars Breakfast about breathing into the moment. So I hope you're both feeling that, but I also hope that you're excited, refreshed, energized. I hope that your minds, especially for scholars, I hope that your minds about your program and what S-STEM is have been pleasantly expanded to understand that you're actually part of a huge national network of very talented, very, very prestigious scholars. And, we know that you are a small part of a larger program on your campus. And we hope that we can continue serving more and more scholars, and that we can bring more and more S-STEM students to conferences like this to support your journeys. So we're so excited again. I hope that you've gotten to enjoy Chicago. How many of you got to sample some deep dish? Okay, Giordano's is staying in business. Or Gino's. I know there's a big thing here in Chicago between the two. Good. We're pleased that you were able to enjoy the city. I will be sharing in anticipation where next year's scholar meeting will be before we're done today. I also hope that while you might be feeling a little tired from all this excitement, like I said, that you're also leaving with a renewed sense not only of joy, but of purpose and of community. We're really excited too that so many PIs have been so engaged in sharing best practices and really thinking, so scholars, while you all have been getting a lot of professional development sessions, that last set of concurrent sessions, I'm curious to hear where folks went. I stopped around to several concurrents. I saw cognitive science on how to study more effectively. I saw tons of sessions around perfecting your brand, your personal statements, your resumes. I saw a session that was all on the science behind sleep. By the way, you're not sleeping enough. You should be getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Crucial to your academic success. I prioritize my sleep. I encourage you to do the same. Just tons of incredible sessions. And while those sorts of sessions have been happening for scholars, PIs have been meeting as well and sharing innovative best practices, sharing sessions about, I popped into a couple PI sessions that were about how to take structural change at your institution to reduce DFW rates, to increase student success, to better reach students' whole selves. There's a whole set of professional development and innovation sharing happening with PIs as well as they seek to continue serving students on your campuses even better. So kudos to you for all your work. Now, this year, we also, I've been mentioning we've had several new innovations in the meeting this year. This is our second ever scholar meeting, first ever combined PI scholar meeting. And one of the things that we were able to pilot this year, which we've been really excited about, is a partnership with Chance to Change Lives. It's an organization dedicated to empowering future leaders in STEM through research and experiential learning. And we offered a competitive research award opportunity to S-STEM scholars who were presenting research posters. How many of you participated in that? Show of hands. Nice. Congratulations. Well done putting yourself up for feedback. Wonderful. So thanks to our partnership with Chance to Change Lives, they sponsored a prize, the prize of $500, which is all towards a registration and travel fee to attend the 2025 Emerging Researchers National Conference, or EARN. Which happens every spring in Washington, D.C., and sometimes Atlanta. This next year it will be in Atlanta. So I know many of you scholars have been asking, would any of you think, oh, I really wish I could come to more conferences like this? I'm seeing some head nods. Yes, yes, okay. While this meeting for scholars, usually scholars only come to one scholar meeting, we have other opportunities for you to attend other conferences very similar to this. EARN, our Emerging Researchers National Conference, is a conference focused on undergraduate and graduate students in STEM and building out your research capacity. It is similarly sized, except that it's more students. So every year at EARN, between 1,400 and 1,500 students meet. There's a whole set of professional development and research capacity development, programming, incredible speakers. It is also funded by the National Science Foundation. And EARN is also one of the largest gathering of students presenting research in STEM from underrepresented groups. So it's broadly open to all students. And it started off actually as a program that first focused just on students from HBCUs. It has grown now to serve all students, but it's a massive program. So for those of you that are thinking about, I want to come to more things like this, I really encourage you to think about EARN. The other thing I want to remind you is that EARN offers travel scholarships to students who are presenting their research. So you can apply for travel scholarships like this conference where we covered all of your expenses. We do a similar thing for students that have unmet need for that conference. You can also talk to your PIs or co-PIs to see, is there research funding that if you're presenting research, is there funding in a grant that might help support your attendance at EARN? So please be thinking about that. So for this research prize, do you want to know who won? Yeah? Well, I'm going to invite Dr. Rama Bala to come up on stage and help me distribute the awards and to congratulate the recipients. So we are so pleased to announce that the Outstanding Student Research Award winners, and I'm going to ask you to please come up. Yes, get the drum roll going. We have 3 winners. First, Nurhalaza Sikur from Utica University. Please come up. And then we also have 2 winners from the same institution, Mackenzie Taylor and Taylor Padobo from the University of Pittsburgh Greensburg campus. Please come up. Nurhaliza Sikur, Mackenzie Taylor, and Taylor Padobo. Come up and receive your awards. Congratulations. You're welcome. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Outstanding work. Congratulations, Mackenzie. Fantastic.
We're going to get a quick picture. Congratulations. And thank you to our incredible partnership again with Chance to Change Lives. So we are excited for our closing plenary discussion today. We hope that you've learned a lot and made a lot of valuable connections with others over these past 3 days. And in our final conversation, we want to help both scholars and PIs reflect on the skills and knowledge gained through this conference to maximize your experience by applying new strategies when you're back on campus or in your lab or wherever else you might find yourself. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panel moderator this morning, Corina Newsome. You can come on up, Corina. And panelists, you can come up as well. Come on up. Oh yeah, you're clapping now, but wait until you hear more about Corina and this incredible panel. You're really going to be excited. Corina is a wildlife biologist dedicated to advancing environmental justice and equity in conservation science, practice, and policy. Corina, who currently serves as the conservation scientist at the National Wildlife Federation, earned her bachelor's degree in zoo and wildlife biology from Malone University and her master's degree in biology from Georgia Southern University. Any Georgia Southern fans or just Georgia in general? For a moment, I was scared that it was going to be silent. So thank you for speaking up. In addition to her work as a wildlife scientist, Corina is committed to increasing the representation and visibility of Black science professionals for the next generation of STEM experts, and centering the leadership and perspectives of Black, Indigenous, and communities of color in wildlife conservation, environmental education, and exploration of the natural world. So once again, please join me in welcoming Corina, who's going to introduce our incredible panelists.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's an honor to be here and an honor to be among such incredible scholars and mentors of scholars. So thank you so much for having me and this entire panel. I'm very excited to introduce this excellent panel of scholars to all of you and have a great discussion that hopefully will help to enrich the journeys that all of you are on, no matter where in your academic journey you might be. So first, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Alex Ajayi, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Minnesota. His research focuses on understanding the institutional, sociocultural, psychological factors that contribute to positive academic and health outcomes. He aims to leverage these insights to develop interventions that promote equity, opportunity, and well-being, particularly among underrepresented populations. Dr. Ajayi is one of the principal investigators on an NSF-supported S-STEM Track III project. And this collaborative initiative brings together STEM students from 3 public community colleges and 1 private university in Minnesota to support their retention, persistence, and success in STEM fields. Let's give it up for Dr. Ajayi. Next, I'm pleased to introduce Lauren Farr. Lauren D. Farr is an avian ecologist and PhD candidate at North Carolina State University, pursuing her degree in fisheries, wildlife, and conservation biology. Her current research focuses on studying the effects of climate change on nestling success in the federally endangered, now downlisted, red-cockaded woodpecker. She earned her BS degree in environmental biology from Wingate University in 2019, and her MS degree in fisheries, wildlife, and conservation biology from NCSU in 2021. Aside from her research, Lauren is an engaged and award-winning science communicator with written and contributed pieces that have appeared in a variety of outlets, including National Geographic and Wired, and many, many more, and has served as a member on the editorial advisory board for the Wildlife Society. Lauren is an advocate for Black and historically excluded minorities in STEM. She serves on multiple committees, including NCSU's Forestry and Environmental Resources, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and co-founded a nonprofit called Field Inclusive. And this nonprofit seeks to amplify and support marginalized and historically excluded individuals in the outdoors. Both her research and her advocacy work led her to be awarded the North Carolina Wildlife Federation's 2023 Governor's Conservation Achievement Award for Young Conservationist of the Year, which is the highest honor in the state of North Carolina. She currently resides in Raleigh, and so please give it up for Lauren Farr. Finally, I'd love to introduce Dr. Rosalind Hobson-Hargraves, who is the Division Director for the Division of Undergraduate Education. The Division of Undergraduate Education in the NSF Directorate for Education and Human Resources strengthens STEM education at 2- and 4-year colleges and universities. Dr. Hargraves is a professor of electrical and computer engineering at Virginia Commonwealth University and previously served as an intermittent expert for NSF's Directorate for Education and Human Resources. She began her term as NSF Division Director for DUE on August 1st, 2021. Please give it up for Dr. Rosalind Hobson-Hargrave. And before we get started, we did want to share that Dr. Bria Macklin, who is also supposed to be on this panel, was unfortunately not able to join us. She does wish that she had been well enough to join and travel and engage with all of you over the past few days, but she definitely looks forward to the next opportunity to connect with you. So we're sad she couldn't be here, but she passes along her well wishes. All right, well, with that, we are going to go ahead and jump right in and make the most of our limited time here. And so, as a previous student myself, and I know this room is full of students, we'd like to start by talking about some of the anxiety that comes when you're thinking about the next steps in your career, especially after graduation, whatever that degree might be. I know I had quite a bit of anxiety as an undergraduate student, and so I would love to hear from the panelists. How did you decide to pursue your careers, and especially when it comes to having confidence and taking the big step to pursue your PhDs in your respective fields? So why don't we go ahead and start with Alex and work our way down.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and it's such a pleasure to be here. Of course, I understand the anxiety, and similar to you, getting here felt a bit unexpected. For me, I remember being an undergrad in my first year, thinking I would be a history major. But then the first year history class being full, I took a psychology class, and in many ways, never looked back. And that one experience essentially allowed me to have other meaningful experiences, including sort of research with faculty and so forth, that then set me off on that path. The confidence, though, it's sort of as a result of experiences as opposed to something that we have that then leads us across. And, I think if you have doubts, if you are unsure, good. Because I think in many ways, doubt is one of the things that communicates to us that this matters, this is important. And, when we do feel that doubt, that's when it's helpful to lean on those mentors or peers that can really kind of give us a sense of who we are, but also who we want to become, and use that information to move forward. But I would say not being sure, not knowing, that's okay, but in some ways not letting the uncertainty stop you from moving forward. Sometimes you just have to try it, and the worst that can happen is that you do something different.
No, that was great, Alex. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to echo a little bit of what Alex said. So for my journey, I actually started out as an undergrad. I wanted to pursue pharmacy school. So nothing, in the wildlife space, although I had grown up in the wildlife space the majority of my life. I grew up in a rural area. My dad is a hunter, so he would take me outdoors with him. Anytime, he would go out, I would be right there. But the whole thing with pharmacy school was really was really my parents trying to coax me into something that would be a stable position. Because I think, our parents, they want what's best for us. So, they want us to be stable. They want us to be okay in life. But also, I think, too, I'll touch on something here, that it does bring a point, which I think probably all of us on this panel can probably agree with, is coming from a marginalized or historically excluded community, it brings on that extra step of, us wanting to be especially, stable and well off in our careers. So, so wildlife biology was definitely not one that my parents were at first, kind of questioning. They were like, all right, well, that's nice. How are you going to make money and how are you going to pay your bills? So totally fair. But that doubt came when I realized that I was not happy in this field that I thought I wanted to go into, which was pharmacy. I wanted to really please my parents for the most part, and I wasn't really listening to myself a lot in that moment. And so a lot of that doubt surfaced, and I ended up just becoming more confident in what I really wanted to do. And it was really taking that, first initial step and saying, this is where my heart, this is where, my calling is. Nature, wildlife. Didn't really know what was going to come out of it, but I took that step, and I mean, here I am today. So I am the living proof that, all is going to be well. So definitely, if you have any doubts, like you said, that's great. Your doubts are probably more than likely leading you to the place that you need to be. So I will 100% say that my parents are like my biggest fans now. So we absolutely love that. But it was definitely coming from that point of just, that unsureness of, okay, what will this look like for you in your future? But now that things are shaping out, it's worked out for the better. So yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
So I've got to admit, I had a bit more of a circuitous journey to make it to the PhD. So I'm going to try and make it concise. When I was 4 years old, I will say, when I was 4 years old, let's say 6, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be an MD my entire young primary, secondary school life. If you asked me, I was that 4th grader, that 6th grader, that 8th grader, that 12th grader who knew they were going to medical school. I studied engineering because my parents told me to study engineering because engineers got jobs when they graduated. My elder sister is an engineer. My younger sister is an engineer. I don't think I had a choice. Plus, I figured an engineering degree would make me more competitive for medical school. So there's something to being a young Black woman in an engineering program in the 80s, which is when I was in college, before several of you were born. But, made it through. I will say my first chemistry course, and this is a lesson learned, when I took my first chemistry course, it was hard, y'all. I was miserable, and my dream of becoming a doctor left with my first chemistry course. Please do not let one class deter what you believe your dream of what you want it to be. Change it. Please don't do that. It worked out for me, but to want to be something most of your kid life and then have it change with one course was not the answer. I will say, because I was an engineer, I took an electrical circuits course and loved it. So that experience said, okay, well, I can be an engineer. So then I said, I'll do engineering. I will go work in industry. Medical school's out the door. I'll go work in industry. I had in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. I did internships, research. I didn't know what that was. There was no way I was going to do anything like that. Research experiences for undergraduates, what? No idea. I had internships. I will say that this is the power of a mentor. One person, only one person in all the faculty I encountered throughout my entire undergraduate engineering career ever mentioned to me graduate school. But it was that one person who wasn't even a professor of mine. It was that one person who every time he saw me said, you should apply to graduate school. In my 4th year, you should apply to graduate school. And it was because I had to get him off my back, I applied to one graduate school. And I finally, I put in my application, and this is my last part of this story. I put in my application, but I was really tired, and I really wanted to go to into industry. I had my job lined up. I knew what I was going to do. I was going to work for the company where I interned at for all 3 summers of my undergraduate career. I got into graduate school to that one school I applied to, which was my undergraduate institution, and they gave me money. they gave me an assistantship. So I called home. I tell this story to a bunch of second graders. So I called home, I told my parents, I got into graduate school, I got an assistantship. They're going to cover graduate school for so many years, and they're going to pay me $1,000 a month, which was nothing. $1,000 a month. I said, but I'm not going. And they were like, what you mean you're not going? You got money to go to school, you're going to graduate school. I was like, I am grown. I am 3 times 7. I am 21, plus 1, because I was 22. I am 22 years old. You can't tell me what to do. I'm grown. They're like, we can tell you what to do. They say, your grandmother would turn over in her grave if she knew you were turning down the opportunity to go to graduate school. You're going to graduate school. I went to graduate school, y'all. And I realized when I started graduate school that I wanted to be a professor. And that was, I was destined and meant to be for my career. So I am glad that I listened to that one person who encouraged me to apply. I was glad that I listened to my parents who had better sense. And when I told this story to second graders, they also had better sense than me. They were like, you didn't want to go to graduate school? I was like, yeah, I know, y'all. I was stupid. I'm sorry. Most people at the age of 21 are a lot smarter than I probably was. But you make some different choices. So I decided to go to graduate school, and it has set me on a wonderful career path.
I love that. Thank you so much for all your great answers. And I have to say, I really resonated with your story, Roz, about one person. I can confirm that there has been one person that has shaped every major step of my career. And so I want to ask you all, because relationships are so important to how you make choices for your career trajectory, not just when you're in school, but beyond, and I can attest to that right now. And those relationships, whether they're kind of in small ways or big ways with colleagues or with PIs, growing a network at conferences, to choosing a PI that you're going to work with for 4 or 5 or more years. In graduate school, very important relationship. So if you could kind of elaborate on that topic a little bit and share, a relationship that has been meaningful or that has contributed to your success in your careers. And Alex, I would love for you, since you're a PI who's here today at this conference, kind of share what you found to be a successful or a key to successful relationships as a PI with your students. So I would love to hear from the panel on this. And Lauren, why don't we start with you?
Okay, for sure. For me, when I initially decided to make the switch, so I was like a straight biology major for that, that pharmacy degree that I was going after. I decided to make a switch from that to environmental biology. From there, I took a course in wildlife management, and that's ultimately what got me hooked, of course, into wildlife. My mentor at the time, she was my undergrad advisor, she took me out, and I was able to do research with her in Idaho, researching sheep. So she's a reproductive physiologist, and she uses sheep really as her model. So I got to go out to Idaho. I got to experience what research really was, which was amazing. So as an undergrad, having those experiences, that was great. Having someone that really wanted to, push you into those experiences was amazing. So I ended up doing that, but that was when I decided that I didn't want to do anything with physiology. Really? So I was like, nah, how about no? But the research aspect was what really hit me. And I was like, okay, no, I would love to do this research. So she saw that wasn't, where I wanted to be, as far as, the physiology standpoint. So she told me to go, and just out of the blue, she said, go talk to our ornithology professor. And I was like, okay, all right. She's like, I feel like that's where you need to be. And I was like, okay. So I go talk to him, and he was the one that taught all of our courses in, this small liberal arts school that I went to as an undergrad, taught all of our courses that were zoology, ornithology, all the animal science courses. I ended up doing research with him, and that's essentially how I got hooked onto birds. So I had that research component from my first mentor, and then I had that, really what I wanted to hone in and study on. And so that was initially birds, and I got to do a lot of, research and studying with that. I had so many mentors in my undergrad. So I would honestly say I could not pinpoint one exactly. It was my whole biology department really at my undergrad institution that really shaped me into who I am today, and like really pushed me into the direction that, you know, I'm at. So it really took a bunch of people and mentors to reassure me that this was the path that I, you know, needed to be on. This was the path that they saw that I had been the happiest in, you know, 2 years, because those previous 2 years I was doing something that I really didn't want to do. So they saw that change from me being absolutely miserable to absolutely like happy, of course, in what I wanted to do. So those relationships are definitely key. They have stuck with me to this day. Anytime that my undergrad institution has homecoming, I always go down and I see my biology professors and I'm like, look at all the cool stuff I'm doing because of you. So really, you know, do not take those relationships for granted, because it was initially that one person, you know, with, you know, my undergrad advisor and the research aspect, but then it was my next advisor who was the ornithology professor, and then it ended up being the entire biology department that, you know, really pushed me into continuing on with what I was doing and, you know, the path that I was on. Those relationships are key, but you are correct that it you know, it only takes that one person to kind of just set you up on that path, and then you just go with it. So yeah.
Thanks, Lauren. And one thing I'll say,
course.
having passionate professors is incredible.
That is key.
I'm also a bird person, and I took ornithology. He was also my professor who encouraged me to go to graduate school, and his infectious love for the subject matter is actually what got me hooked before I even studied the subject matter. So shout out to our really excited professors. Alex, I'll pass it to you to talk a little bit about what makes relationships meaningful and keys that you apply to yours as a PI.
Sure. Yes. So I'm also a psychologist, and you know, in the field, one of the things we say is relationship is the medicine. And I think outside of the context of therapy, that is true for most things, right? In many ways, they are the mirror, right? You were talking about that reassurance, the person that gets to tell us, like, I think you can do it. For many of us, we're doing a lot of things for the first time, right? I didn't know I could write a dissertation until I wrote a dissertation. And it requires people having confidence in us, being able to see sometimes the things that we can't see in ourselves. And so I find that to be so important. I also agree that the impact of those relationships can go from a meaningful professor, but also friends that you can study with. And I think even those relationships with peers, with people even in your family that always ask you, oh, how is school? Even if they might not have a higher education degree, to really sort of nurture that. And, you know, as Corina said, I'm one of the PIs working with a wonderful team of colleagues that are sitting in that center table over there. And we work with students across institutions in Minnesota. And in my role is really doing the social science research, really trying to figure out how to best support our students, to understand our students more deeply. And one of the things I use is sort of narrative data to help unpack, right? And so one of the questions we are really interested in is like, what keeps people in STEM? What motivates them? What attributes do they align with? And often I would argue that that answer is complicated and actually quite diverse. And some people have always known, some people had that one class that changes everything. And I think there's room for all of those to be our stories. But then I think, you know, working with research to be able to sort of shed light on the diverse experiences and what is often over and over and over again, people talk about relationships, people talk about meaningful experiences, and then talk about the kind of reassurance they get and the confidence they get via other people who get to mirror who they think we can be.
Awesome. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, because we are running short, I want to jump to our final question, and I'm going to start with Roz, if that's okay with you. So a conference like this, like Travis mentioned, is exhausting, right? And that's a good sign that you've been putting yourself out there, you've been engaging with people, and you need a nap. That's excellent. Attending conferences becomes a really big part of your life when you're in school, and if you choose to go into academia once you graduate, and even if you don't, if you're working in a non-academic field, conferences can still be a big part of the work you do. And so as we depart part today, I would love for you all to share, again, starting with Roz, how you think students can kind of really make the most of the people they've met at the conferences, because there are so many contacts, there's so many more people that we know now, and it can feel overwhelming. What is your recommendation to students to think about when they attend conferences going into the future to make the most of their time during and after those conferences? Roz?
So I have to admit, I am of a different era. I told you guys I was in college in the 80s, so keep that in mind, because sometimes I'm a bit technologically challenged when it comes to using the variety of apps on my phone and the like. So I'll start by saying it's interesting to hear your stories about how you engaged and how you identified who your research collaborators were. My advisor when I was a graduate student was in his last year. I was his last student, and I had my research project because he gave me an article to read and said, here, think about this for your research. And that was it. So I was kind of flailing a little bit on my own in trying to identify how do I pursue this research. I went to a conference, and I am an extrovert, so I don't have a problem with going up to people and talking with them and meeting with them. There was a guy who was doing research in an area that was aligned with what I had read about in that article, and I just went up to him. He gave a presentation. I went up to him. I explained that I was a graduate student. I was thinking about doing research. I was embarking upon research in this area, and could I talk with him more? And then I talked with him more, and then he connected me to some people at another institution. And so when I went back to my advisor after attending this conference, which I went to by myself, which was incredibly intimidating. And I'm a graduate student by now. So that was somewhat intimidating, going to a conference by myself, and then trying to navigate and figure out my way through. And then just finally being bold enough to go up and introduce myself and trying to ask a couple of smart questions during his presentation. But that has been sort of my willingness to do that, my willingness to kind of find an article on a person and reach out to them. And because I'm of a different era, I will cold call a person. I know if I call my graduate students now, they're like, why are you calling me? Send me a text, do not call. So, but to use LinkedIn, to use some of the apps that you have to connect with people, I think is really valuable for students now. But then you have old people like me who will take a telephone call, or, I give out my cell phone number. I was like, give me a call. And I answer those. Even when they say spam, I answer them because I don't know who may be calling me. So I think that's my advice, to be bold. All they can do is say, no, thank you. But what if they say yes? Sure. Love to talk with you. And there's also something to be said for being persistent without being annoying. Like, okay, so I don't answer your first email. Send me another one. Send me a third one. If I still don't answer you, then I'm probably But I think be willing to sort of put yourself out there to connect and to be a little persistent, to then say, okay, because you never know who may say yes and what kind of collaborations you can build.
Yes, and the single right yes can change your life and trajectory. It really can. Lauren, and then Alex quickly, and then we'll go ahead to questions if there's any time.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, as an undergrad, I was fortunate enough to be exposed to my first conference as an undergrad. So I went with a group of my peers. So that really helped. Navigating a conference by yourself for the first time, yeah, it's a whole thing, because conferences are huge. There's a lot going on. You definitely cannot do and attend everything, so don't feel like you have to. But that experience really set me up for what I would experience as a grad student. So I went on to NC State, did my master's, and now pursuing my PhD in my 4th year. And with all of that, I was fortunate enough to already have that conference experience in my background, in my toolkit. And I wasn't really fearful of going to, conferences by myself if I had to, but it is really nice when you get to go with a group of people. I will say it is really nice, especially for your first time. Some tips that I have found helpful and that I would recommend, especially, as a graduate student, really lean on your, professors or advisors or your mentors. They can really set you up with, setting you up to meet people that might be at that conference that they may know. So, a lot of, contacts within the life sciences, just using me as an example here. When I'm about ready to go to a conference and there might be someone that I may not know, I might ask my advisor and be like, hey, do you know this person? Do you think you could introduce me via email? And that way that person's already on my radar, so that when I go to that conference, we can already set up, a time to chat or, over coffee or breakfast or anything like that. And that really helps you kind of narrow down, the people that you really want to talk to. And even beforehand, right? So the conferences nowadays, they have all of these apps and stuff online. You can go on there. I love to do it. I go on there and I'm nosy at who's going to come to the conference. And so I'm looking at the different people and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this person's coming. I want to talk to you, or I want to talk to you. And, I may reach out to them beforehand. If I don't know them, I might, have my advisor or someone who knows them reach out to them, introduce me to them. So there is stuff that you can do beforehand before you get to the conference. During the conference, making those connections again with those people, 100%. Do not be fearful to go up to someone. I know it's easier said than done, because I'm like you. I'll just go up to somebody and just start talking my head off, so it's fine. But for someone who may not be comfortable with that, I encourage you to don't be fearful to do that, because 9 times out of 10, we're really honored for you to come and ask us questions or talk to us about our research or anything like that. So definitely go out on a limb there. But yeah, that's what I would say as far as some good pre-conference tips, really, before you go to the conference, connecting with people while you're there. Don't be afraid to connect with, new people that you might go to their talk or anything like that. You can connect with them afterwards, because we're more than happy to talk to you about our research. So yeah.
Thanks, Lauren.
Of course.
Lots of great ideas. Only kind of a couple of things I wanted to add is also follow up, right? Sometimes you might not be someone who is comfortable maybe going up to someone. Send an email. That might feel a little bit safer. And I think to your point, the idea that often people want to talk to you about their projects and who they are. And, conferences are also a great way for you to learn about things that are new, right? It's great to go to sessions based on your interests, but also things that might be outside of your interests but pique yours, and you might discover new opportunities. And then the last thing I'd say is, sometimes these connections and networking is not for the immediate, oh, there's a job on the other side or something like that, or a position, but more so to start to cultivate seeds that you don't know. Maybe 5 years, 10 years later, there might be an opportunity for you to see that seed, germinate and turn into something bigger. And so, again, relationships are the medicine, including with strangers.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I want to say, every time you go to a conference, going to at least one session that is completely outside of your field is great, because the future is interdisciplinary and you will have ideas piqued every time. All right, I know we are at time now. I don't know if we want to take any questions, but thank you so much to our panelists. Please give them a round of applause.
I'm not going to let
much.
the panelists. I'm not going to let the panelists go yet. We do have about 10 minutes for Q&A, so please feel free to come to a mic. I'm going to lead off with a question that was asked in the app for the discussion. So one of the questions is a person who's interested in conservation and environmental protections, and specifically the policy around that. And Olivia Forrest is actually asking, saying that she has found it difficult to kind of move from science into policy, and wondering if any of you all, if any of the panelists have suggestions for either classes or degree or kind of co-curricular experiences that might help a scholar move from kind of the science space into science policy.
So I'll take this one, because it's really interesting that this was brought up, because believe it or not, a lot of us, I was actually talking with Corina about this earlier, a lot of us really don't know about the policy and everything that goes into, we don't really know the heavy in-depth things that go into the policy of conservation and wildlife and everything like that. We just hear about these decisions get made, and we're just like, okay, cool, next. For someone who is interested in that, I can tell you that I am planning on trying to put something together where I can bring, some good top-notch experts to kind of lead that conversation and kind of get to the bottom of that, because I'm curious too. Although I work with an endangered, a threatened now species, it's still, me sitting here kind of being like, well, how did those decisions get made? Or where, who's sitting at the table? Policy, what goes into policy, right? So for whoever asked that question, please reach out to me and I would be more than happy to talk with you. There are, depending on the university, they will offer courses in this. Unfortunately, my university does not. So again, why I am trying to try to just get something together for it. So so definitely reach out to me and we'll have a discussion for sure.
One thing I would add, so I currently work in a science policy intersection position. I had no policy background going into this job. So when I got hired at National Wildlife Federation, I sat in on a lot of policy calls with our lawyers and attorneys to learn about how policy works. And then I was able to contribute more and more to that policy science intersection. And organizations like mine, National Wildlife Federation, has fellowships for students who graduated or are currently in undergrad who are interested in learning more about policy, who are wildlife scientists, kind of in their background education. So highly recommend looking for fellowships like that. And connecting with attorneys. They are great assets into learning about policy.
All right, so we already have probably more people standing with questions than we can get through, but we're going to try our best to get through the 5 of you that I see. I hope I haven't missed anybody. If you can try to make sure that your question is a short question, we don't need a lot of exposition, so that we can try to move quickly. And if you don't mind going first, that'd be great.
My name is Megan. I'm currently pursuing a conservation and wildlife biology degree, so my question is kind of designated more towards you all that are in wildlife biology. But I've heard it's a relatively competitive field, so what sort of advice do you have for students to ensure their success and entry into a competitive field?
So first and foremost, I would say get as much experience as you can, whether that be through internships or fellowships, anything like that before you pursue a higher degree. Because I will say that 9 times out of 10, I mean, the courses that you take, of course, they matter. Your grades matter somewhat, but really they're looking at that experience that you're getting. So I was able to do a few internships while I was undergrad because I went straight through all of my degrees. I took no breaks. But during that time, I was able to also carve out some time to get some more experience, especially as an undergrad. So that really set me up for success in pursuing my graduate degree, and then that's where I am right now. So definitely experience. The courses that you take, 100%. And really, it's definitely one of those fields where it is very unsure at times. But I think, as we all said here at the very beginning, trust your gut, trust your doubt, and you will get there.
One thing I would add is getting comms experience. Communications is increasingly important across fields, especially in wildlife conservation.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Right here.
Hi, I had a question on how do you think scholars should deal with anxiety that comes when reaching out to mentors that are several years out of practice, something like high school teachers, or maybe even several years when some of these students have completed their PhDs, but they remember this talk that we're having. How do you reach out to somebody when it's this person won't remember me, or anything like that?
Just do it, to be honest with you. I know it sounds strange, and truth be told, I just recently emailed someone who I was an undergraduate with, which we already know was a long time ago, just this weekend, because something happened at the conference and reminded me of her. I say all you can do is try. They may remember you, they may not remember you, but then you sort of jog their memory, and even if they don't remember you, let them know the impact they had on your life. I'm going to take that quote, relationships is medicine, or relationships are medicine. It does feed our souls. So even if they don't remember you, you remembered them. So please, they will appreciate it.
Hello. I was wondering, how do you know if a master's degree is right for you, and what are some signs that it's not, or a higher degree like PhDs?
Great question.
I would say if you're not very passionate about the subject matter that you're thinking about pursuing, like you're kind of so-so, that's maybe a sign to wait, get more experience to kind of gauge what makes you excited, because the thing that powers you through graduate degrees is you loving the subject matter. So that's one thing that I would say.
Okay.
Quickly, I would just add, curiosity and self-interrogate. Like, would I like doing this, right? So your values, your skills, your interests, does it match? And sometimes getting more data, right? And using a data-informed decision based on conversations with other people who've gone through it. And then at some point, you might just have to make a choice and cross your fingers.
I will just add that if it's the currency for what you want to do with your life, then sometimes even when it's hard, you will have to persist through it because it's a pathway towards what you want to do.
You all are doing so well with your questions. I just want to give you gold stars.
Hi, is this on? Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name's Alidra. So to my understanding, you guys have kind of switched majors or trajectories throughout your life. How did you guys deal with that mentally? And like also if you guys did struggle with this, dealing with like the imposter syndrome of switching between fields or majors?
I would say that I did a lot of experience between every degree that helped to shape my forward movement and setting myself up to get encouragement from people when I did not feel like I was confident. And that came from my professors because they knew me as a student, they knew my work, and they had the best information to kind of share back with me when I couldn't remember it clearly that I was equipped. And them sharing their stories with me about their circuitous paths and hearing from other people like Ross has been sharing has been the case for me.
I will add that your gut will tell you too. Because sometimes when I am doing something that's not quite what I'm passionate about, there's a gut check to say, okay, this is good for now, but you need to adjust and do something slightly different. And so keep in mind, I was faculty in engineering, then I went to be faculty in a school of ed, and then, now granted they were both faculty positions, but I spent some time at USAID, I'm now at NSF. So sometimes you just gotta sort of go to what that next thing is, enjoy it, recognize that it is what is working for you right now, and be comfortable with taking the chance that that next thing you will do will be just as successful as the previous thing you did, or more successful because it's more about what you want to do. So.
And our final question.
Hi. My question is kind of similar. So what I was going to ask is, how do you deal with your parents' reaction when you have a career change, like mentally, that bit of disappointment when you're not pursuing exactly what you want to first?
So not only did I want to be a doctor, my mom wanted me to be a doctor. So it wasn't always easy. And even after I graduated and became a professor, she was still like, well, she wanted to be a doctor all her life. I was like, well, I'm the other kind of doctor now. But you continue to show them, and as you get older, you will develop adult relationships with your parents. And the love and respect that they have, the love that they have for you now will evolve into respect that they will have for you as an adult for the choices that you are making. And continue to trust that the decisions you're making are right for you, and they are indeed your decisions and not your parents' decisions. My daughter tells me that all the time.
Sure, and I guess I will add, it's also helpful to maybe, notice where it's coming from. Usually it's because parents want us to be okay. They have their own anxieties of what will happen if you make this shift. And I think being able to also reflect that back to them and say, I know it's tense because you care about me and because you want me to make the right choice. but I'd appreciate your support as I navigate this, right? Because I think you not being sure, needing to make the case to parents who are also unsure can feel overwhelming. And I think if you can all be looking at the problem side to side as opposed to the problem being in between you, it can really work out a little bit better.
And I'll add this last thing too. So I used to do this thing where I would take my parents' curiosity about what I was doing for granted. So once we got over the first hump of, all right, well, this is what she wants to do, I guess I'll go with it. And so, just continuing on doing that, then I would be doing my research or doing whatever, and my parents would start asking me questions. And at first, I was so annoyed by those questions. I was just like, why are you asking me that? Like just whatever. But don't take that for granted, because essentially I started to learn that was them trying to understand what I was doing. Do they fully understand what I do? No. But they know that I love wildlife. They know that I work with wildlife. They know that I work with birds. And they will ask me just little simple questions about my research or just how my day was, or just anything like that. And I just say, don't take your parents' curiosity for granted once you get over that hump. But it's what everyone has said up here. Your parents love you and they want what's best for you. They are just, they're unsure about what you're pursuing or what you want to do with your life, but it is your life. It is your life, it's not your parents' life. And so I had to make that mental adjustment as an undergrad of me thinking, oh, I'm gonna disappoint my parents, when really it was the best decision for me. And now it's all dandelions and roses. But just know that it will, it is a thing, it will happen, but you will get through it.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Can you please thank the panelists again with me?